Hey, what's up guys, this is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at NECA's Gargoyles HUDSON figure, a figure that officially came out a while ago, but I wasn't able to get one until now, so we're reviewing it now. Definitely would have been somewhere on some kind of top 10 list last year if I had gotten it then, so if it'll make it onto some kind of list this year, I don't know. There's no real good way to work that out for figures that release right around the end of the year, but we'll see. Either way, this is the next entry into NECA's Gargoyles line, which has been pretty amazing so far. It's been really good. There have been a few let's say consistent flaws or problems or troubling issues with the figures, but overall they've been amazing. This figure may be the best one yet, but it does also have a few kind of weird quirks that we need to talk about. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands. I have his legs bent like this, which is, by the way, okay, we'll get into this first. One of the quirks NECA has established with this line is that they tend to have the gargoyles with their knees not bent. More like straight up human legs, not digitigrade legs, and then the feet out. It's not right. Only the women, Demona and Angela have... Is that Angela? Yeah. Have ever really been drawn like that consistently. For instance, Goliath, normally his legs point straight down and then they bend back and then you have the foot. Same thing for almost all of them to varying degrees, so I'm going to leave him bent like this as he should be. I'm not going to keep doing height measurements up against Goliath for every figure. Once we have more of them, we'll get more group shots together, but they're so damn big, I just don't have the space to keep putting all of them on. So we'll do our height measurement like we normally do. He stands just about 7.5 inches. That's going to make him pretty close to 19 centimeters. Again, that will vary depending on how you have his legs set up. And we will, of course, do our comparison against the one comparison that truly matters, Darwin. He comes up to about chin height, right around there. And you can see, I think that's good. Yeah, I think that's right, because these guys are supposed to be about 7-inch scale. And so that lines up pretty well, I think. I'll take that. That's all right. All right, so let's go ahead and do our question of the day. I want to keep doing this question. I'm going to do 2 of them, just so that if NECA does watch these, they can hear from you guys. This is your way to hopefully speak to the manufacturer. This is my hope anyway. What do you want done with the wings? As you saw in the intro, I had to have the box really far away because the wings are huge. They take up a ton of space. I've heard this echoed by almost everyone. These wings look awesome, they're great, wonderful, but we need the A-frame, A-shaped wings of the relaxed wings. Not the cape wings, relaxed wings. I think that. What do you guys think? How do you want your wings shaped? I'll show you an image of Goliath with his wings exactly the way I want them on my shelf, because I can't see how I'm gonna fit all the different Gargoyles figures, including villains and everything, with their wings out like this. This is awesome for a flight pose, but that's kind of it. These are very challenging as far as just practical space requirements and things like that. So that is a bit of an issue for me. And they did show on their, what was it, Christmas or New Year's or something, they were posting like all these collection images so you can like do a check-off type thing. New Goliath wings that still aren't the A-frame. They're not the cloak, they're not these, there's something kind of in the middle, which is still not enough for me. So I'll post that image too if I can find it. But let me know what you guys think about that. And then secondly, do you want them, I think I've asked this before anyway, do you want them to do stone versions, which is not really practical because you wouldn't want to be posing them like that necessarily, but I still think it would be kind of cool and it'd be a way for them to milk the molds a little bit harder. So let me know if you guys would like that. I think it might be kind of fun to have at least a few stone versions of these guys. Okay, let's get into the aesthetic. It's phenomenal. Paintwork throughout is just nuts. There's paint everywhere. You can see his belly, his main brown, has 2 different tones on it. There's a dark brown with like a reddish bronzish dry brush. The armor up here has the obvious metal on there. The face, the beard, all kinds of different paint detailing in there. It looks wonderful. His pants shaded nicely. His leg wraps, another different color shaded nicely. The little stitching's painted. The skin tone is obviously painted and shaded wonderfully. The wings, lots of paint going on in there, different shadings and things. I will say I don't understand why they made him... The backs of his wings are very tanned, and you can see that on the front here also. It's a little bit weird because that's not the shading they used anywhere else on the skin, and these should match the skin tone, so that's a little bit weird, but obviously it's not a huge deal. And then we do have this slightly metallic finish for the backs of the wings, and then a lot of nice detail work in here for his straps and clothing. So yeah, this figure is, just from a paint perspective, it's everything you could want. I would never expect any more quality or even just more paint application other than maybe the weird tan color. I would never expect anything better on a figure that's mass produced at this price point. Very, very, very nicely done. The sculpt is also really good. I have one weird issue to talk about, which we'll get to when we get to the articulation, but this thing is just wonderful. It is maybe the best one that they've released. Or it might just be because he's got the armor and stuff, so it allows them to do a little more with it, but still, it looks wonderful. Very, very nicely done. So aesthetic rating, 9.9 out of 10. There's hardly anything to even mention other than that weird coloration on the backs of the wings. All right, now as far as accessories go, we have the normal head that comes on in the package. Then we get the yelling head, which I would argue is an even better head. Less useful because you don't necessarily want them just standing there screaming, but I think it looks really, really good. And then for the hands, we have the 2 fist hands that come on in the package. Then we get 5 other hands, varying degrees of gripping or whatever you want to use them for. One is a vertical hinge. I love that. That's helpful for sword poses, so that's very cool. And then, of course, we do get his sword, which is very nicely done. I love the silver paint with the black wash. Then we have the gold hilt and the wrapped handle. Like, they don't miss any details. Everything's painted, everything's sculpted. It's wonderful. So accessory-wise, I'm not seeing anything we really need beyond this, so I'm gonna go 9 out of 10. I think it looks really good. I mean, you could make the argument for the wings, which is fair enough, so you could argue it down to like a 7. We need another set of wings, but I don't know if that's a very fair assessment. It would have to cost a lot more for that, so I think at this price point, it's good. Okay, now for the articulation, which is generally what NECA leans away from in order to get the aesthetic and the accessories where they are. We'll see how this plays out. We have ball peg for the head, but because of the beard, which is especially full, he's got a very full beard, and of course we do have his hair, which comes back over the wings. You're not going to be posing the head very much at all. You can get some, but like I said, that beard is really going to get in the way, and so is the hair. So you're not going to get much out of that. Nothing they can really do about that. Shoulder pads are connected up here at the top of the traps, so they're going to be somewhat troublesome. Let's see how they work with the arms. You get the arms out about that far. I mean, maybe if you heat it, you can really force them to get a little bit more, but that seems like it's going to be about it. As far as rotation goes, yeah, it's about that far, which is okay. The shoulder pads flex a little bit, but not too much. But again, I think that's going to be okay. I don't think you're going to be putting these guys in Spider-Man poses, especially Hudson. So I think that's fine. Bicep swivel works no problem. Double jointed elbow. I haven't had any stuck joints on this guy, so that's good. Really good range out of that elbow. We'll get these leaned back just a little bit so that they don't get in the way of the lighting. So yeah, the elbow works nicely. The wrist has a swivel, could be a little tighter, I guess, and a hinge, but that'll mean they swap easily, so that's okay. Now, this is the weird thing. I like the way they did the diaphragm joint from the front. That's good. You can lean him forward and back a little bit. Not a ton, but some. And then side to side, that's okay, and you get some rotation out of that. That's good. You want that. An extra diaphragm joint up there is nice. However, the way they did it is not okay with me. I know why they did it. They did it to keep the sculpt of the shirt separate. That makes production much easier. But then having his skin and everything have a big separate like shelf in here, it doesn't make sense. Because you want it like that. You want him to be full. If you lean him forwards, there's just this big lip that I don't care for. I think they should have just gone ahead and cut it underneath here and had this connected to the body. That would have given him a thicker body, which he should have, and it wouldn't have had this weird lip thing that gets in the way. You would have had much better range of motion, and it would have looked better. It just would have been harder to produce in terms of paint. So, not in love with that. Don't really like that too much, but it's not a huge deal because it's on the back of the figure, and it's alright. The problem I have, I guess, mostly is that you want to have him leaning forward a little bit more in the neutral, and that does create that big gap in the back. So in order to have his back touching and connected, this piece here, you have to lean his top half back, then his bottom half forward, but the bottom half doesn't have as much range. So it just becomes a little bit finicky and annoying because of the way they did that. Speaking of the bottom half, it is a ball peg, so you get your rotation out of that. You get some leaning forward and back, side to side, but not a ton. It's mostly going to be rotation and kind of adjustment posing. But I think it's alright, that's fine. Works pretty well. For the hips, we have the ball peg style hips, ball socket hips. They aren't as tight as I would like, but they're not loose, so that's okay. You can get them out pretty far. No real issues there. Going forward, he does have a lot of cloth here, so they're going to be somewhat limited, but I don't think it's too bad. I think it's okay. And going back, you get pretty good range. You do get Well, I guess you don't. I mean, it's there technically, the thigh swivel. I thought you were going to get more range out of it. Very little range for the thigh swivel. That's a bit of a bummer. For the knee, it's a single jointed knee. You can straighten it out pretty far, almost like a standard leg, basically like a standard leg. And then it goes back about 90 degrees. Could use a little bit more range, but I guess that's fine. Technically, that does rotate if you want it to. Probably don't need to, but it does. You have your standard ankle hinge, which is nicely ratcheted. I think that's all right. Ankle rocker built in, that's good. Toe hinge ratchets heavily, which for something like this, I'm okay with. You don't have a ton of positioning options. It's either going to be here or here sort of situation, which is not ideal. But for a foot like this, you kind of want that heavy ratchet to hold it in place. And you do get an ankle rocker out of that as well. So I think I'll take it. You don't want your gargoyles falling over. So heavy ratchets are good to keep that from happening, but they do hurt posability. For the tail, it's the same type of tail. It'll rotate on that peg. Definitely has a lot of paint transferring going on, so I don't love that. And then that hinge is, I'm not even going to move mine. You can use the hinge, but once you use it, it gets fairly loose fairly quickly. And because of the way it attaches, I want it to not do that so that he doesn't flop over, because I'm using it like a third leg. It is a bendy tail. You're not going to get a ton of bend out of it. It's a fairly stiff tail, but the paint doesn't flake or crunch or anything, so I like that. Okay, last thing, the wings. These are probably the best wings they've done. They just sit proud. They don't sink into the back at all, so there's no problem there. And the ratchets all work, so they could be tighter, but they're there. And then these ratchets work nicely too, so it's fine. I'll take it. Best wings they've done so far. Okay, that's a lot to talk about for one figure, and it's all mostly pretty good. It's not perfect. There's some weirdness going on here and there, but I think NECA is definitely hitting their stride when it comes to these Gargoyles figures, and I am very pleased with that. I'm going to give this guy's articulation only, I'll say 7. I think that's fair. It's definitely limited in some places, but it's reasonable, and it should be good enough. And now it's time for the final verdict. Like I said, probably NECA's best Gargoyle so far. One of their better releases in recent history in general, and definitely one of the best releases overall that I've reviewed recently in general. I gotta say, for the price point, I don't think you can really get much more for your money. This is pretty darn good. I'm gonna give it an overall rating of 9 out of 10. It's really, really good. If you're into cool figures or gargoyles at all, you should get one of these. You should track it down. I do believe they're available at Big Bad Toy Store. There's a link in the description below, and you might want to track one down for yourself. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down, and if you haven't subscribed, you should. I have new videos almost every single day, and thousands already on the channel, so make sure you come back for all of that. In the meantime, keep collecting.